Hi. Good to see you. I thought we had a good talk last week. Did you? Don't say no if you didn't. I think one of the things I loved most about it is that it felt easeful. And at this stage in our relationship, I feel like that's how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to feel easy, yeah? This is going to be harder. The world, I think, does not have the patience we might like for the niceties of our growing relationship. And I feel both deeply compelled and, to be honest, have been much asked by the community to speak about what a Jewish community should be, what a Da'at Shalom could be after October 7th. In a lot of people's minds is this question: will a Da'at Shalom take a stand on the war in Israel and Gaza and Lebanon? Will it take a stand on Zionism? And for a significant portion of those people, the way that it's being phrased in their mind is, why hasn't a Da'at Shalom taken a stand on these things yet? And for what I assure you is an equally large group of people, the way it's phrased in their minds is, please God, don't let a Da'at Shalom take a stand on these issues. Because they know, and I think they're right to a high degree of probability, that the minute that we do, at this moment, that what will happen is that about half the community will quit and protest. And one of the things that I'm telling you today is that I'm not planning on splitting the community just yet. Having said that, there are times in which that's exactly the right thing to do. In fact, not to do it, I think, is a moral abdication. In 1861, Rabbi David Einhorn, he was later to become one of the founders of the American Reform Movement, a very important figure. He had edited the Union Prayer Book, for those of you who grew up in Reform synagogues. He was chased out of Baltimore because he had the temerity to speak up against a pro-slavery sermon or actually a book that another rabbi had written. Let me put it this way. He was chased out of Baltimore because he had the temerity to say that enslaving black people is wrong and that they should be free. And when I say chased out of Baltimore, I don't mean that as a metaphor. I mean that they tried to tar and feather him, and that they took the printing presses that had printed his tracts and they broke them. So sometimes communal cohesion, if it comes at the cost of moral blindness, is a sham. And the question is this one of these times? Is this one of these moments with what's going on in Israel and Gaza between Zionism and anti-Zionism? And I'm going to tell you right now that there are many, many, many people who are saying to me, yes, this is one of those times. And they're saying it to me with great certainty. I think that to be an internet-connected human being in 2024 is to be awash in the certainty of other people. Do you know what I mean? Like, the tone is strident and the TikToks are for real. And on some level, nobody agrees with each other, but we are deeply, deeply certain about what we hold. And what I keep finding is as the voices rise, I find myself, you'll forgive me, less convinced by what they're saying. And I'm not less convinced by what they're saying because the voices are rising. People are dying. It is not inappropriate to be loud about that. But because what I hear largely, what do I hear largely? Okay. What I hear is moral outrage, and with vanishing rare acceptance, almost no moral vision. And let me tell you the difference between those two things. When Martin Luther King was talking about why he chose nonviolence as a strategy, oh, the bitter irony in this moment. Why he chose nonviolence as a strategy, he said because it's a sword that heals. That was the phrase he used. And a better sort of delineation of moral vision as opposed to moral outrage cannot be found. Because in moral outrage, you use it, whatever's at hand, to stab the person that you're outraged by, whether verbally or, God forbid, otherwise. And when it comes to moral vision, whatever implement you have in your hand, you use it to cut through the thicket and thorns that are in front of you so that, God willing, you could find a way forward. And the way that you know the difference is if there are just a bunch of people wounded on the ground or worse, or whether or not someone has had the guts and the will and the brilliance and the blessing to cut a path in front of you, that though perilous, you could walk. And I am waiting for that moral vision. For about 6 months now, I have been asking a question. This question, forgive me, seems blindingly obvious to me, but I don't know quite why it's disappeared from the moral landscape. There are about 7 million Israeli Jews and about 5 million Arab Palestinians in the Israel, West Bank, Gaza. The numbers are rough. I'm not trying to make, it's not so much the point. And I'll go to people and I'll sort of ask, so what is going to happen to them? How will they live? Will they live? Who will care for their homes? What will happen to the people? And to that answer, I get crickets or absurdities. No, man on Twitter, the Jewish people are not going to move back to Poland. God, the lack of historical consciousness that it took to make a statement like that. No Jew on Facebook, by the way, the Palestinians are in fact a real people. Unfortunately, it was Golda Meir who was the first person to sort of make that famous publicly, who said that. I hear nothing when it comes to a vision that would take us forward. And you know what? If I'm going to put a sign outside of my synagogue, it's not like I'm above outrage, but I want it to be a sign of vision. And you know what? You want, after Yontif, I'll go out there and I'll put up a sign that says, we believe in a just peace for Israelis and Palestinians, that they should be able to live on the land of their ancestors and thrive in safety. But with all those words, it'll cost $2,000, $3,000. You know, it's going to cost a lot to the shul in order to do it. Oh, I thought that joke would be funnier. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just wanted to lighten the mood a little bit. It didn't work. I understand. But here's the real point, which is I'm telling you right now, if I put that sign up, my prediction is that someone would rip that sign down. And here's why. Vivian Silver, who is the founder of an organization called Women Wage Peace, a group of Israeli and Gazan women or Palestinian women who are coming together to try to change the narrative and to turn the tide, right? On October 7th, it was thought that she had been kidnapped, and soon it was discovered that she had been murdered. Women Wage Peace, I think mostly through WhatsApp, I'm not sure, 7 days later put up this. It took us a week to formulate this statement. We are a movement made up of Jewish and Arab women with diverse opinions and positions, and we found ourselves inside this crazy, threatening, horrible, and frightening movie. There are no words in any language to describe what we all went through this past week. We're still searching for the right words that we can share at this moment. And then they went to lay out in like 5 or 6 Instagram frames a vision of peace and togetherness that made me cry. Imagine the guts it took to write that. The fortitude it took. 7 days after October 7th, I couldn't remember my own name. And they were in the middle of the Gaza envelope and doing this. I know something about stringing words together. And I couldn't believe what I saw. And I was in awe. Until I read the comments. And I didn't know you could be called traitor in so many languages. What I read in that comment section still stains me. Because ironically, in this world, it is the people who try to find a way through who have it the worst because they get it from both sides. In this broken moment, if you're an extremist, it's paradoxically a little easier for you because you're only getting attacked from one direction. How did we get here? Oh God, how did we get here? How much time do we have? You know? But one of the things that I want to suggest is that one of the ways we got here is that I believe that our ideas are running out of road. They are reaching their limits. They are ceasing to be useful to us. The ideological frameworks, as they're contemporarily expressed now, Zionism, anti-Zionism, decolonialism, neoliberalism, I can add a few more isms in there if you would like. I think that they're starting to reach their breaking point. And I'm beginning to fail to see how they're going to take us forward. Look, I am possessed as a human being of deeply strong opinions about who is wrong, and who is right and what they should do and who should apologize in public and who needs to move from where. I am. File me under, by the way, like American liberal Zionist rabbi who cares about Palestinians. Like, there's a type for me. Put me there. I'll tell you. I'm not trying to hold back from it. But if I'm such a genius, and my ideas are so compelling, and everything I think is so right, how did we get here? For 20 years, we have not had a single new moral vision about what to do in Israel and in Palestine. And I beg of us all, no matter how deeply we're holding on to our ideological frames at the moment, to consider what they've profited us and whether or not they might need something new. There's something funny about the Jews, which is that we ourselves are actually a great disprover of most of the world's ideologies. And here's what I mean. I'll actually use Zionism and anti-Zionism for this, right? So in anti-Zionism or in certain circles, Israel is expressed as a white settler colonialist enterprise, a descendant of sort of European colonialism that's taking over. Fair enough. Certainly rampant across the world. Except for the fact that half the Jewish people would be deeply insulted if you called them white. Deeply. They're Sephardic, and frankly, they're better than we are. Not to mention the ones, by the way, who are black and who are Asian. We aren't that kind of homogenous people. By the way, we are a deeply oppressed people, right? Anti-Semitism now is worse than it's ever been in my lifetime. Anti-Semitism is absolute. We are a people who have been discriminated against our entire lives. And also, I don't know if you've met deeply racist Jews, but I have. And I don't know if you've met Jewish oppressors, not professors, sorry. Oppressors, but there's this guy whose name's Itamar Ben-Gvir, and I disagree with him. Have you ever heard of a guy named Menachem Kahana? We may be the only people in history who are exiles from and colonizers of the same place. Did that ever occur to anyone? And by the way, please do not take offense if I use the word colonizers. You're going to have to take it up with the early Zionists because that's the word that they used. The early Zionists, by the way, are a mixed bag. Jabotinsky was like, you know what we need to do? We need to learn Arabic and Hebrew and live hand in glove, side by side with the Arabs the way that they live. That's how we're going to do this. Ben Yehuda was like, it's not going to be a problem, don't worry about it. And a guy named Israel Zangwill was this huge countercultural figure, was like, the only way this is going to work is if we pay the Arabs of the land to leave. Otherwise, there will never be peace. This is a thing that Israel Zangwill said. By the way, he was not anti-Arab. He was trying to be realistic about what it meant for two peoples to live in the same place. If you want to know what I think that a Dat Shalom should be after October 7th, is a place that carves out holy space for new ideas and new moral visions, no matter how fumblingly it may be expressed, no matter how we might stutter as we say it, but this is a place that would actually embrace something that is fresh and different and unconsidered that might lead us in a different direction forward. That's what I think we should honor. That's who I think we should be. Because what's gotten us here isn't working. Look, we're not a think tank, and I'm just a rabbi. But our ancestors were brilliant at this. We were the people who brought you. An eye for an eye really means that if you hit my car, just pay for the damages and PT if necessary. Seriously, it says in the Torah, an eye for an eye, right? It was Talmudic innovation that basically said, what does that mean? Money. It says eye. It means money. Be quiet. We were the people that said, if our religion is destroyed and our home is broken and the place where we used to meet God is in shambles, what we're going to do is we're going to take our religion and we're going to put it on our backs in books and we're going to grow it anew. We did that. There's a statement in the Talmud in Chulin that says Iyafshar lebeit midrash ela b'chidush. There's no such, or below chidush, there's no such thing as a base midrash, a Jewish institution of learning and of Torah that exists without innovation. And they didn't mean the Elon kind. They meant moral innovation. And here's how they did it. What they spoke about was that they had 4 square feet of the law. That's how they talked about it. What did they really say? 4 square cubits of the law. Do we have to get into the biblical weights and measures? 4 square feet. I'll talk to you about it afterwards. And what they meant by that is that you have to have a frame. There needs to be some sort of a boundary, right? Not everything is considered. And they threw out the immoral, the inconceivable, the impractical, and the just plain wrong. They had a boundary. But within that area, every idea was worth considering. Moral innovation was prized. I know stories of children who actually gave drushes on their bar mitzvahs, famous rabbis, children of famous rabbis, who actually contradicted their fathers at the time, for which their fathers came and kissed them on the cheek for it. And more than that, those ideas were robustly tested. 2 great, towering figures of Jewish learning, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, who the Talmud gives not small indications, by the way, were probably, there's a good chance that these men loved each other deeply and were actually had a physical relationship with one another. They used to study, and Rabbi Yochanan once said, before the relationship fell apart, he said, when I would say something, I would give you 24 reasons while I was right. And Reb Reish Lakish would give you 24 reasons while I was wrong. Umimela Rav Chashmata. And from that argumentation, inevitably, the learning expanded. That's how we do it. I think we could do that. I've been here only a few months, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm reasonably sure that a Dat Shalom is not going to be a place where everybody agrees. But you know what? If we're not going to agree on ideology, by the way, I think if you want a place that agrees on ideology, you got to go to a place that does that. That's not this place. But even if we're going to be distinct on ideologies, I think that we have ideals in common. Look, for me, the North Star is always going to be, how are you going to safeguard the welfare and lives of 12 million people? But there are more that can go on that as we build a moral frame. How about every person should be able to sit under their fig tree and their vine leaf and not be afraid? Or there should be one law in the land for the citizen and the immigrant amongst you. Or how about this one from Yom Kippur? I will bring them whole to my holy mountain, and I will make them have joy in my sanctuary. All of their offerings will be accepted, for my house will be called a house of prayer for all peoples. And I can get hip. I can do the modern stuff too. Freedom from oppression, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of religious diversity. We can build our ideals, even as we disagree on our ideologies. And by the way, charity begins at home. If you have not lost friends or had a rift in your family over the war in Gaza and in Lebanon and in Israel, raise your hand. God bless. Because the vast majority of us don't speak to people we used to love over this. And I would like the synagogue to actually, if we can, find the wherewithal to see if we can even facilitate some of those conversations between people who are deeply driven apart and riven by this contract. Not that they should agree with each other. They're not going to agree with each other. But where are the ideals in common? And can you work on that? Can you find that? Can you stand up for that? And people are going to give you pressure for that. They're going to accuse you of being disloyal if you reach out to the other side. But is it worth it? It is. I'm not yelling at you. In order to do this as a community, there's one very important thing that we're going to have to do together, which is to handcuff our fingers from pressing the send button on our emails. I have sent those emails. I have received those emails. I don't think that they are the expression of vigilance and strength that we think they are, with rare exceptions. When stuff is happening and it's very extreme and it's very, very clear, and there's like stuff being written in Moco high schools, like you got to, but I think that most of those emails are actually an expression of what I feel, which is a deep, deep, deep sense of powerlessness in this moment. I don't think we need more moral outrage, although there's plenty to be outraged by. If you're going to write an email, write it full of moral vision. I'm going to give you an example. One of the things I love about Adat Shalom is that we rotate through prayers for Israel and for the Middle East and for Palestine. It doesn't stay the same. I think this is absolutely genius. I've never thought of it before, but how possibly could one prayer express everything we feel about the issue, So the idea of changing prayers, I got it immediately, and I was like, this is absolutely the right thing. But I said a prayer one day, and we have a new member of the synagogue. He's a friend of mine. His name's Kobe Waxman. I hadn't met him before I got here. And this was not Kobe's prayer, the prayer that I said, for various reasons. He did not like this prayer. And after shul, after services, we were standing in Oneg, and Kobe came up to me, and he grabbed me by both shoulders. And he kind of rested his head against mine a little bit, and he started davening out loud in English. He said the prayer that was in his heart of brotherhood and sisterhood and friendship and peace between peoples and a world redeemed. I had never seen anything like it in my entire life. It was a privilege as a rabbi to be there. And that is what expressing moral vision in community looks like. And I want this place always to do that, to be that. I think we are that. I stand here with a deep sense of inadequacy before you. I have not solved the Middle East conflict. I haven't even solved the American conflict. I haven't even solved the conflicts within the synagogue. To be honest with you, I haven't even solved the conflicts in my own heart. I know the words that I've offered today are imperfect. I know that they don't reach where I would hope they would be. But I am reaching. I will grope to a future come hell or high water. And I want you to do it with me. In order to make a difference, things have to be different. And I think that Adat Shalom is different. So, if you're going to write me the email after Yom Kippur, my request is this. Write me not with your outrage, but share with me your vision. Gamar Chasim Tova.